to the first workshop of the Ambition Emotion program. I'm so excited to have you all here, so excited to get started, so excited for you to begin the endeavor of connecting with a mentor and learning about what you want to do professionally and then getting your foot in the door with professional opportunities. This workshop is, and this program in general, is going to help you get to where you want to be as a young professional into your career. And essentially for these workshops, I'm expecting you to watch this either live at 8 p.m., right when it goes live, or within the next 24 hours, and then post your comments to the questions that I have for you during the workshop. I will state those questions during the workshop when I'm doing our interviews with our interviewees, our guests for the evening. But more importantly, I want to know that you're engaged, that you're participating with this, because we've got a lot of great content for you. Now, when you get introduced to your mentor on Wednesday, you should reach out immediately. You should start the conversation immediately. You should not delay. I don't care what's going on in your world. I don't care if you're waiting for a career fair to happen. I don't care if you're waiting for some job interview to happen or you're waiting to hear back from some company. Get started. These mentors are here to help you. The more you delay getting opportunities with your mentor. So get started. Now, you can have more calls with your mentor. Actually, it's highly encouraged. But for successful completion of this program, for the way that we define it, have 3 conversations, at least 3 conversations. And those are just the general guidelines for when we believe that you should have those conversations. We will send a post-program assessment, which will allow us to capture your feedback on the program, on the experience itself. And that's essentially it. That's the program for the semester. I'm really excited to begin working with you. I'm really excited to get started. So this workshop is going to be roughly an hour long. During this workshop, we're going to cover how to achieve success in this program, how to expand your network and begin having conversations with people that you want to surround yourself with, and how you can begin working towards a goal with your mentor. This specific workshop's all about how do I get my foot in the door with opportunities. This could be an opportunity for a job or an internship. It could be an opportunity to get mentored by somebody, to be an apprentice. It could be an opportunity just to learn from somebody else, to start setting up informational interviews and just building your network. Either way, this is about getting your foot in the door, because networking is not a transaction. It's not about, hey, I'm reaching out to you so then you can get me this. Like, don't get me wrong. Your end goal could be to ultimately land an internship, and that absolutely can happen, but that is not how it goes about. That's not how you go about doing it. You have to build a relationship. You have to build trust with somebody. You have to build a rapport with somebody. And you know what? It might come about. They might say, hey, my company is actually looking to hire somebody, or I know this person that you should connect with, and they make an introduction, and that leads to that next opportunity. You never know how this is going to work out, but the key is that you're not expecting it from the relationship. You're coming in grateful for whatever opportunity that can come about from this relationship with your mentor, and you make the most out of it. But I just want to say that our goal is about how do we get your foot in the door, how can we help you effectively make those relationships happen and get the ball rolling for you. So to get credit for attendance during this workshop, I'll be asking you 3 questions throughout the workshop for you to answer, and post your answers to these questions in the comments sections within 24 hours of this video going live. So if you're watching the Sunday night episode of this workshop, I'll expect you to have your comments made, your answers to the questions that we post by 8 p.m. on Monday. If you're watching the Monday night version, I'll expect your answers to be posted by 8 p.m. on Tuesday. And if you're watching the Tuesday version of this workshop, I'm expecting your answers to be posted by Wednesday at 8 p.m. After that, you will not get credit. Now, I'm not looking for a comment like, hey, my name is John Doe, I'm just checking in. That won't get you credit. I'm going to ask you specific questions during the workshop that I'm going to point out and say, hey, post your answer to this question below in the comment section. That's how I know that you will be watching, paying attention, and are engaged in the workshop. So I want to set proper expectations. This program will not guarantee you an internship. It will not guarantee you a job, getting promoted faster than your peers. Having that mindset will not lead to proper results. This is not a program that hands things on a silver platter. These are for students. This program is for students that want to take their career path and their career into the next level, to their college experience to the next level, because that's absolutely what this program can do for you. If you think like, hey, I'm going to sit back, do the bare bones minimum, not really like apply myself, you know, you're going to get the outcome that you put into it. But if you really apply yourself, you absolutely can get the outcomes that you want. I mean, I like to think about it as the law of attraction. If you come in expecting negativity, you will get negativity. If you're open to the positive, you will achieve positive outcomes. You will attract positivity to what you want to achieve. So I really want to encourage you to come in with an open mind and a positive outlook for what you can achieve, and the willingness to work hard towards getting there. Students who have gone through this program have landed jobs at places like Google and other Silicon Valley companies, Wall Street investment banks, prestigious PR and marketing firms, and major engineering firms. Absolutely, yes, that has happened many times for many students. But did those outcomes get handed to them on a silver platter? Absolutely not. It's all about what you put into this program and the outcomes that you can achieve. They absolutely are there. They are absolutely possible. You have no idea how this can come about and help you out in terms of your mentor. Treat this program as fuel to help you get to where you want to be. If you're already burning and going strong, this program can really help you accelerate. Imagine just like getting dumped a bunch of gasoline on your big fire that you're already building. If you're burning barely at an ember, let this program be a sliding point, a starting point for you to launch off. But if you think and you come in with the mentality that, hey, I'm kind of doing a couple things, but I'm kind of following the status quo of like, I just go to the annual career fairs and I apply on the online website and that's pretty much it. If you're coming in with that mentality and that you're not going to try to or be willing to open up and apply and do other things to help you get your foot in the door, this program you may struggle with, because we're going to teach you a lot of things and a lot of ways that you can go about getting your foot in the door and getting opportunities for yourself that are not the normal way. That's why this program is for the students that are really interested in taking their life, their career to the next level, because these are the tips that you are not taught in school. And the experts that we bring in, the guests that we bring in to these workshops have content, insight, and wisdom that they've utilized and explained within their books, within articles, within other pieces of content they've created that they've built an expertise on. And so the point all I'm making is that this program, if you're interested in taking your life, your career, your college experience to the next level, you are in the right place. So I'm really excited to get started. Now, a couple of keynotes about mentorship. Now, when it comes to your mentor and who you are matched with, one thing that we leverage extensively is this research called work orientation, which is how you view your work. So some people view their work as a job, some people view their work as a career, some people view their work as a calling. Imagine a triangle and imagine it being a spectrum that can change throughout your life. So after you take your assessment and after you get matched with your mentor and you log into your dashboard, you can actually see your work orientation and your paired mentor's work orientation, which is really cool. Because what we've learned is when work orientation is aligned for a mentoring relationship, the likelihood that that relationship lasts for the full 6 months is considered both productive and quality by both participants increases by 400%. It's crazy how powerful work orientation is when it comes to mentor matching. If we were just to match you based on your career interest or their status within their company or their area of expertise, we know that those are only transactional metrics, and the likelihood that that relationship will last for the full 6 months and be considered both productive and quality is low, because then there's an expectation that someone's going to give you something or that you're going to give them something, and that's ultimately not how successful mentorship works. Successful mentorship works when both people can, on a human level, invest in each other, and that's how we make the matches happen. The other key thing about mentorship is vulnerability. The willingness to open up about who you are and what you want to accomplish in your story. I know that when you are more vulnerable, you are much more likely to build trust. You cannot build trust unless you've got vulnerability first. And it's up to you or your mentor to be the first person to take that step. So I want to challenge you to be the first person to take that step, to be vulnerable first. And to give you an idea of what vulnerability looks like, I will share with you my story. Now, I'm passionate about mentorship. I'm passionate about mentorship because I needed mentors in my life. From age 15 to age 19, I was a drug dealer. And at the end of my freshman year at Indiana University, I got arrested in an undercover operation by the Indiana University Police Department. And I got 5 felony distribution charges. I was expelled from school, and I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And I mean, that hit me like a brick wall. I mean, up to that point in time in life, I thought success was you go to school, you get good grades, you get a job, and then somewhere along those lines, you find yourself, like as if it were puberty, it would just come to me. But that's not how life works. And I had to learn that the hard way. Because no one who I had ever known that I ever thought was successful ever was a drug dealer. And so I had to accept either being a total failure or redefine my definition of success. And so I chose the latter. So I ended up enrolling in a program in St. George, Utah, to help me turn my life around. And that's where I really got exposed to the power of mentorship, both on a personal level and a professional level. On a personal level, really having personal mentors, people that are there for you, are so powerful. I really don't want to ever discredit that, because I feel like sometimes when we're here and we're thinking about our professional outcomes, we don't realize how valuable mentors can be on our personal level and really what they can do for us. Because if they help you open your mind to what you can accomplish in your career, or what you can accomplish as a person, and in who you can emulate your life after, they can really show you something that you didn't actually even believe in yourself that you could accomplish. And I think that's so powerful, and that's really what they did for me. But on a professional level, they helped me really come to the grips with the fact that when you search my name when I was 19 years old, the first thing you saw was IUPD does drug sweeps for 8. And I'm one of the 8. I mean, there could not have been a bigger red X across my name when applying for any role. I mean, could you imagine that? Literally, any role I would apply for, I would have showed up with a big red flag. That is bad. So about a month after living in Utah, I flew back to Chicago. That's where my family's from, for the weekend to let them know my life's getting on track. On that flight, I'm sitting next to a guy. We start talking. He starts sharing with me about his life. I start sharing with him about my life. We hit it off. I take a keen interest in him. I'm actively listening. I'm sharing. I'm really trying to put myself into his shoes, and I'm really, most importantly, actively listening. I'm taking down notes. I'm following up on the things that he has to say. I'm really digging into his world because he loves to talk about himself, and I'm really playing into that. Well, it turns out he's the director of ground equipment for SkyWest Airlines. And by the time that plane lands, he offers me an internship on the spot doing financial analysis for SkyWest Airlines. Boom. Like right on the spot. What an amazing experience. I mean, he took me under his wing. He didn't care about my background. He didn't care about what I had gone through or where I was going or the fact that I may even go to prison sometime in the next year. He took me under his wing and gave me a shot. And that was huge. And that's really where the whole idea for Ambition in Motion came from, was like the fact that opportunities could come out of the blue, that they didn't come from just applying on a website and people putting your resume in a background check system, and that, you know, maybe you get spit out with this opportunity. I learned that opportunities could come from just putting myself out there, being vulnerable, and taking a keen interest in somebody else and actively listening to them. And so I think that's such an important story to share with you, because it shows, I mean, my vulnerability, but 2, it shows that opportunities can come from a wide array of places, and it doesn't matter where you're coming from, it matters where you're going. And if you believe that you can achieve what you want to achieve, you absolutely can achieve it, but you have to put in the work to go and get there, and you have to be willing to be vulnerable with people. Don't hold all your failures, your mistakes close to the chest because you think people will judge you. Put them out into the world, because ultimately people will give you opportunities and they will believe in you if you let them. So that's something that's extremely important and extremely helpful for this workshop that I really wanted to share with you. Now, for this mentor program, there are 3 keys to success in this program. That is honing your strategy, your story, and your state. Now, I said those in reverse order of importance. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit about why each one of these are so important in terms of being successful in this program. In terms of your story, in terms of your state is your physical being, your physiology. Like, how are you physically right now? Are you like in a peak state? Are you ready to go? Are you jumped up, pumped up, ready to jam? Are you coming into this mentor meeting like, man, I'm about to take on the world and I'm ready to go. I'm excited. I'm amped up. Or are you hunched over? Are you in a bad body language, bad posture, in a bad mood? Something bad happened during the day. You're tired, exhausted, stressed out, whatever. If you're coming in with a negative state, I can promise you're going to have a bad relationship. Your first impression is everything. Your first impression is everything. If you come in a negative attitude because you've had a bad day, I can promise you the relationship is not going to get off to where you want it to be. But if you come in with high energy, you come in like, hey, I'm pumped, I'm excited to learn from you, I'm excited to learn your story, I'm excited to ask you questions, I'm excited to share knowledge with you and have you ask me questions, I'm excited for this relationship to begin. If you come in with that mentality, you will have a great and positive first impression. Now, there's a couple ways that you can go about doing this. One way, and my favorite way to go about getting yourself into a peak state physiologically, is to get up, shake it loose, and yell at the top of your lungs. I know it sounds crazy to do something like this, but I want you to do it right now while you're watching this video. I don't care if you're in your dorm room. I don't care if you're in your house. I don't care where you're at. I want you to stand up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to shimmy. I want you to let it go. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah! Just let it loose. Let it out. Let it go. Because here's the thing, when you do this, you're releasing endorphins in your brain that make you feel excited, that make you feel energized, that make you feel good, that make you feel confident, that make you feel like I am here and ready to take on the world. And when you do this, you get yourself into a state ready to be in a good mood, to leave a good impression. So I don't care what's going on with your world. If you get yourself into a state physiologically conducive to being successful, get your body language on point, you are going to be successful. Promises on that. The next key is your story. So what is the story that you tell yourself? If you tell yourself a story like, oh man, I'm an introvert, so I couldn't possibly be good at networking, or I couldn't possibly be good at socializing or being around other people. Or if you tell yourself, I'm an extrovert, I'm crazy around people, I can't even handle it right now, I'm nuts. I can't even contain myself when I'm around people. I'm just like a blabbermouth. I have word vomit. I just let things fly like crazy. If you tell yourself these stories for why you will or won't be successful, that will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So back to what I was talking about when I said the law of attraction. If you believe that you can be good at something, you will be good at something. I promise you that. But the key is you have to believe it. And the second thing is you have to practice it, because networking is a skill, like shooting a basketball or knitting a quilt. The more you practice, the better you get. So if you think, oh man, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert, which makes me bad at networking, you're not going to practice networking, which is going to reinforce you being bad at networking. But if you work at it, if you practice, if you use this mentor program to meet with your mentor, someone who's got like of no consequence to you, like if you, God forbid, mess up this relationship with your mentor, what is the worst that happens? This was a total stranger that you've never met before this moment. Now all of a sudden you're building this relationship. Why not give it a shot? Because here's the thing. If it ends up working out great, it gives you the confidence to start reaching out to more people and building a better rapport with more people and building your network. And then all of a sudden you can become better at networking. You can be better at building relationships with other people. And you can be better at learning opportunities when they arise and getting your foot in the door. So the point I'm making here is, what is the story you tell yourself? What is the thing that you've got in your mind for why you will or will not be successful? And the key here is that if you do have something positive in your mind, I promise you, you are going to be much more likely to manifest that outcome for yourself. And the last key is the strategy. So what are the strategies that you are going to leverage to help you getting your foot in the door for an opportunity? Now, here's something that I like to do. I like to implement new routines every single month, because what it does is it helps me get into into powerful habits. Now, some of them stick, some of them don't stick. Some of them take, a while to stick. Some of them take practice, and that's okay. But the key is that you have to start. And so one thing that I would love for you to start doing in terms of a strategy to help you build a strong routine that will help you start getting your foot in the door is if you don't have a LinkedIn profile account, get a LinkedIn profile account. LinkedIn is a powerful tool. It's so powerful. Well, then once you've gotten a LinkedIn profile account, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field, not just 10 new friends or whatever. If you're just starting your LinkedIn account, friend request everybody. Get as many as you can. In fact, you should really try to get above 500 plus LinkedIn connections, because once you're there, you are much more in the LinkedIn algorithm likely to get recommended by other people in terms of connecting with them. But more importantly, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field of interest. So if you want to get into banking, connect with 10 bankers. If you want to get into marketing, connect with 10 marketers. If you want to get into engineering, connect with 10 engineers. Connect with 10 new people every single week. And it's a really easy thing to do. Send them a personalized message. Say, hey, Jane Doe, I'm a student studying XYZ category. I'm really interested in your work, and I'm interested in potentially pursuing a career in this path. I would love to connect and maybe learn a little bit more about your work, your name. It's the simplest message. And in fact, if you go on the tips and templates tab on the AIM dashboard, you can actually see a copy and pastable link that you can literally copy and paste to help you send this message out to other professionals on LinkedIn. But if you can get into the habit of sending 10 new people a connection request every single week, I promise you, you're going to start meeting with some of these people, and this could open up doors that maybe weren't even there or you didn't even realize were possible. I strongly encourage that. 70% of all job offers go to somebody who knows somebody at that company, not from just applying blindly on a college career website. I promise you that. 70% of jobs go to someone who knows someone at that company. So if you can build relationships with somebody at that company, your resume will go to the top because you were a referral, not a random stranger who applied. Build your network. So one thing that I love to do, and by the way, we're about to get started into our guest speaker, but one thing that I love to do before, to really reinforce what we're talking about, one thing that we've learned is teaching something to somebody else. So think about something that you've learned within these first few minutes of this workshop so far, or something that you will learn through our guest speaker in this workshop. I want you to think about that, and I want you to teach it to somebody else. Something that you learned. And the reason why this is so powerful is because learning something in a workshop is amazing. I mean, sure, I'm on here, I'm on this video, and that's great. That's all. That's amazing. That's fine and dandy. But if you go back to bed, or if you're like, oh, that was cool, I kind of took a note, whatever, like that might stick, but the likelihood that it actually sticks increases exponentially when you teach it to somebody else. So find a friend, find a stranger, find somebody, and teach them something that you learned this evening, and I promise you it will reinforce substantially more in your brain. You are much more likely to adopt the habits that you are learning. You're much more likely to apply the skills that you are gaining. So that is the key thing that I really want to stress with you from this workshop. So I'm really excited to jump into our guest speaker because we've got a great one for you this evening. I'm excited to learn. I'm excited for you to learn from our guest. Everybody, welcome to our workshop this evening. I'm so excited to talk about how we can do our best to get our foot in the door for professional opportunities. We've got an incredible guest with us here this evening. We've got Carrie Russell. Carrie is the president and CEO of Top Notch Recruiting, which specializes in IT roles for individual contributors, senior management, sales executives, and C-level executives. Her passion is helping people find their next career adventure while helping companies find their very best talent. Carrie, thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you.
So you are a master at helping people get their foot in the door for opportunities because you're already working with the companies that are identifying the opportunities for these people. That's really cool, the work that you do. I think the students are going to really enjoy learning your perspective on essentially how they can go about getting themselves and putting themselves in the best position to put them in the right spot to get the role that they want or the internship that they're pursuing. I guess I'd love to start out. How did you get into this work? What was your very first job? I'd love to learn your career trajectory and transition into what you're doing today.
Thanks, Garrett. I'm super excited to be here tonight, talking with everybody and answering questions as they come up. So I got into recruiting through a mentor, actually, who shared with me in my 20s that they thought I'd be really good with people and technology. It was actually, I did Mary Kay Cosmetics, and I met somebody through there, through that amazing program for women who approached me, and she was a recruiter at the time in the technology space. So I did sales myself for 14 years, and then I went back and decided to start up my own business of recruiting. But I did work for a recruiting agency in my early 20s and then left to go actually sell software. And so that's definitely benefited me being on both sides of the fence, so to speak.
Selling makeup and then selling software. That's pretty crazy. How do you get into this? Like, how did you acquire your first professional job? Like, did you know that you wanted to sell Mary Kay, or did you know that you wanted to sell software? I know you mentioned your mentor opened the door for you, but really, what did your mentor do to get your mind thinking that this could be a real career opportunity for you?
I think one of the most important things is networking and being open with people, which consists of being vulnerable, saying, hey, I'm looking, or I'm looking for my next career opportunity, or I'm not really sure about what my future holds, but here are some of the things that I feel I bring to the table that would make me good at XYZ. I didn't know. A lot of us after college don't know what we want to do. And so I think it's important that we share with friends, with family members, and ask family members to share with folks that they know, including maybe executives where they work, what opportunities they might have for a recent grad in psychology or in marketing, whatever degree that they most recently obtained.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love that fine balance. I love that you use the V word, vulnerability. I think that's a very powerful term for getting an opportunity. But I think that there's a fine balance there. I think I guess I'd love to learn, what are your thoughts on that fine balance between being vulnerable, but being potentially overly transactional? Because I think sometimes with some students that I've seen, it gets into a little bit of the transactional. We're like, hey, can you give me an internship? Can you give me a job? Can you give me an internship? Like, I'm looking. And it's like, that's awesome that you would feel comfortable asking me. That's amazing. But what can you actually do to, like, more or less not actually endear yourself to the person, but like, if I've never met you before and you already asked me for an internship, how can we build that bond? How can we bridge that barrier so that I can fully know you, get an idea of who you are, and feel like, you know what, I feel comfortable referring this person?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. That was a lot, so I'm trying to think, how do I dissect what, we can use tools, and we're going to get into this a little bit later on. LinkedIn is one. You can actually do now a resume, a video resume that you can attach on LinkedIn. There's ways that I can suggest how you would source, you know, in network that way. You can list yourself as open to work on LinkedIn. There's a lot of ways that we could kind of tackle that. Is there one specific area maybe that I can address, Garrett, that you're thinking of?
So, Carrie, you said this really important word, the V word, this vulnerability term of ultimately how students can be vulnerable, which is great. I think the willingness and the openness to actually share, you know what, hey, I am looking for that job, or I am looking for that internship, I think is really powerful. But I love to find, where's that fine balance between being vulnerable, but also rapport building and building that relationship? Because sometimes I've seen some students or recent graduates where they're a little bit transactional, where they've never met me before, but on LinkedIn, they're saying, hey, Garrett, what's an internship you can think of? I'm looking for an internship, or can you give me a job? Like, how can you help me? And it's like, whoa, we've never even met before. So how can we go about building that rapport before jumping into the vulnerability? Essentially, how can we maximize the power of our ability to be vulnerable by building rapport first?
That's a great question, Garrett. So one of the things that I always coach candidates in general, whether or not they're recent graduates or looking for work, especially during COVID, there's so many of us that are unemployed, to identify or make a target list of companies that they feel match or mirror their mission statement. So things that you care about, things that are important to you, that resonate with the values. So maybe that's, you know, in software or animals. I can list off a plethora of things, but if you can, cosmetics, you know, so if you're interested in something specific, make a list of companies that you want to go and check out what they offer and stand for, and then write an email potentially or a LinkedIn message to make it more intentional and say, you know, I came across your website and I'm especially interested in XYZ because it matches my values. Here's what I offer, and here's why I believe that I could be a good fit for the position that I noticed you have open. So being really intentional in going after the position itself, but also matching your skills with what they're looking for.
I like that a lot. I think one way you could even add to extrapolate onto that, because I think the statistic is that 70% of all jobs go to someone who knows someone at the company already. Perhaps if you're a student and you're looking through that list of companies that you highly admire and think would be really beneficial to work for, perhaps on LinkedIn, reach out to people who are in the roles that you would like to be in, and don't actually ask them for a job or like say, hey, this is why I think I'd be a good fit for the role. Maybe just ask them like, hey, would you be open to an informational interview? I'm a student, I'm studying XYZ. I think the work that you do is so fascinating. I think the culture is so interesting to me. Would you be open to having a 15 or 30-minute Zoom call just to share with me a little bit about what your experience is like? I would love to learn a little bit more about the company. And perhaps that conversation extrapolates into another conversation, which leads into another conversation. And then maybe they say, you know what? And say, hey, I just noticed you've got an open position for XYZ role. Do you think you could recommend me or who the person be to chat with about this? And they very well may make that introduction, and that could be your foot in the door, because they're going to put your resume to the top of the stack if you already know somebody at the company. What do you think about that, Carrie?
No, I love that. That's perfect, and it's great advice for really anybody. I think one of the important things is to remember that it is a numbers game, and that you need to make a lot of reach outs to these different companies, to these different people. If you only send out 3, you might not hear back from any of them. So it really is, it's educational for you, but remember, you're asking them to give their time to you. So I say, reach out to several folks, but that's a great idea.
That's awesome, Carrie. I think that's a really big point about the numbers game. I think so often we build up in our mind, before we've even met somebody, this person's perfect. I looked them up on LinkedIn. They work at my favorite company doing the role that I really want to do. And they just seem like they've got a positive demeanor. They also went to my university or whatever. And that's the only person you reach out to. If they don't respond, I mean, one, there's a decently high chance they don't respond. A lot of people don't check their LinkedIn messages. It happens. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. A lot of people don't check their email messages. You get a spam filter for a reason. Not to say that your email spam, but sometimes it just throws it in the spam folder and you've got no idea. So reach out, spray it, put it out to as many people as you can, because if you put it out to 100, you could get 2-3 informational interviews. And by the way, it's totally okay to reach out to 100 people. But if you only reach out to 1 and they don't get back to you and you say, that was a stupid idea, I can't believe I did that anyways, could you really say that you put in a good faith effort into trying to put that outreach out there?
Exactly. You nailed it. That's exactly what it is. It is definitely sending out a lot of messages. And once you identify a couple folks that are willing to do the interview with you, I think it's really important to ask, who do you know in your network that would be willing to talk to me and sit down and have a similar interview where I can ask them more about what they do, what they're passionate about, and how that might align with what I'm looking to do next.
That's a great idea, Carrie. I love that. So I would love to transition, because it's on the same topic, but I think so often as a student, we might think to ourselves like, well, here's a role I know that I'm more than qualified for. So I'm just going to reach out to one person and kind of let it there. I guess maybe, could you share with us a story of a time that maybe you put yourself out there for a role that you knew you were more than qualified for, but for whatever reason you struggled to get your foot in the door? And if so, how did you handle that situation?
Yeah, for me, it was definitely in sales. I was definitely qualified for an opportunity at Microsoft. I put my name in the hat for the role. At the time I was working for VMware, which they're both large software companies. There's often times that you can be looked at as overqualified, meaning too expensive. There are times that happens, and really the best way to overcome that is, if you're given the opportunity to talk to them, do some objection handling. While I understand you might have concerns about this, here's what I do have to offer. And if you have some flexibility with compensation, definitely bring it up. Try not to pigeonhole yourself in those conversations, especially around internships. Hopefully that answers the question. Is there something you'd like me to expand on there, Garrett?
Yeah, I would. I'd love if you could share the details of the story. So when you applied for this role that you knew you were qualified for and you kind of got rejected or turned away or turned to the side or kind of got the runaround, what specifically happened? Could you detail the story and maybe more specifics? Like what did you do? How did they respond? And then how did you react?
Yeah, so I was turned down by the recruiter. I got the rejection email. And then I went to LinkedIn, which are some of the tips that I was going to share eventually, maybe in this call today, is I reached out directly to another recruiter, as well as the recruiter that I received the objection email from, and shared with them why I felt like I would be a really good fit for the role. You don't cut and paste the description, but you do need to pick maybe top 3 bullet points of what they're looking for and how that correlates to what you the background and experience that you bring to the table that matches that. So bringing it, highlighting, maybe there's an HR director, maybe there's somebody in the company, let's say you're going for a marketing manager role. You can look up the director of customer marketing or the director of marketing or the CMO and be bold, right? Reach out specifically to that person on LinkedIn. That's how I ultimately got the interview. At the end of the day, they didn't choose me, but being persistent, and it's not something that I know a lot of us are comfortable being or doing, is constantly looking for a way to find a contact. Usually that is something that folks think are sales related, but I can't tell you how often that's helped a lot of my candidates find work, is by really digging deep into identifying who might be the right contact. So, while I wasn't going around the recruiter, I did write her specifically. I did find other advocates that were working on that role to position myself and at least get in the door for that interview.
I love that story of persistence and tenacity. That is so huge, Carrie. Like, that is so powerful. I think for so many students, they take no as like the first answer and like, well, that was over. That was stupid. That was a big waste of time. And they don't even consider, could there be an alternative route into this company, into this opportunity? I love that story. It's so powerful because it's so easy. I mean, so many people do this. Students do this, adult students. I mean, I'll give an example. And this is not necessarily even a professionally relevant example, but it's an example of just being persistent and reaching out. My fiance and I got tickets to our favorite band. It's a band called Young the Giant. We really enjoy them a lot. They're like an indie rock band. And at the time, we were still college students at Indiana University, and they were having a concert. We had tickets, and we were, kind of like waiting around for the concert to get started. And we saw these people walk out of a tour bus. Now, we didn't know when doors opened for the concert. So we, she was more or less along the lines of like, we can look it up online. We got the internet. We've got smartphones. Why do we need to, potentially walk up to these people coming out of this tour bus to see what time the doors open? Like, and I'm like, well, you never know unless you ask. And, maybe we can ask them for other things too. Who knows? What do you got to lose? And she was very much against it. She was just like, no, we're gonna look it up on our phones. We'll figure out what time the door open. I was like, no, we're gonna go, and I'm gonna ask them. So I went up, kind of solo mission. I said, hey, what time did the doors open for the concert? And they were like, oh, it's gonna start at 7 o'clock. I'm like, okay, great. By the way, how do we meet the band? And they're like, did you see what we just put in our jackets? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. They had backstage passes to see the band, and they just gave it to us on the spot. And you never know unless you ask. The point is that like so many people think, oh, like if somebody rejected you, or your mentality about what you think is reasonable, it's so easy to psych yourself out of actually getting the opportunities you want because you weren't willing to be persistent or try a different avenue, because what do you have to lose? You got nothing to lose.
I love that story. That's a great story. And there are a lot of great stories that I have some examples of where perseverance paid off. But I think we need to have an attitude of gratitude as well, and realize that when folks give us their time freely, that we come prepared. It's a lot of us putting ourselves out there and in stating what it is that we want, but also realizing that they have needs, and in saying, hey, maybe I can return the favor someday, or I'm really excited to be able to grow with your company, or be able to share more and spread the word about what you do.
What I think is really powerful is so often, especially people in more senior positions, they're not necessarily looking for you to repay them in some form or fashion. They're not looking for you to, give them a job of sorts or whatever. But what they are looking for you to do is and just like what you said, Carrie, be prepared. Have a keen curiosity into what they do and come prepared with questions of what you would like to ask. So if you get the opportunity to speak with somebody, that's an incredible opportunity. Don't show up empty-handed. Don't show up without questions of what you would like to learn from them. Because if you do, you potentially put yourself in a position to be not actually embarrassed, but them say, you know what, I don't know if you've got nothing prepared for me. I don't know what we're going to talk about here. So with that said, is there a right and a wrong way about going and getting your foot in the door? I think we've kind of touched a little bit about it, but could you share more about that, Carrie?
I'm trying to think of the do's and the don'ts. And we talked a lot about the do's, what you can do to get your foot in the door. There's also social media. You know, LinkedIn isn't the only way. You can read articles about companies on Twitter. You can follow on LinkedIn as well. You can go to Facebook and find, C-level executives that way, learn a little bit more about maybe their personal life and tie that into a message. We can also look up phone numbers. Believe it or not, picking up the phone will pay off. You basically can dial in. Most phone systems are listed this way. You go look for Carrie Russell at XYZ company. Most of the time you'll be routed directly to their voicemail, or leave a message with the receptionist or whoever answers. You can still today get a hold of somebody to be able to leave a live message for the person that might be able to help you with your next career opportunity. And again, once you reach that person, if you catch them on the phone, and I know you're probably prepared to just leave a voicemail, be prepared. Be excited about the fact that I'm calling you out of the blue. There's named specifically why you're calling and what you're hoping to achieve from the call. And always what I say when you reach somebody is not only say, I know I'm calling you out of the blue today, but do you have a few minutes to talk? And I'd love to share with you what I'm looking for and why I'd like some time with you. And if now's not a good time, when could we set aside some time? I know it comes with confidence, and sometimes you have to prepare in advance and leave a voicemail so that you don't go, like I just did. So that's something that you can practice on your own phone. I've left several voicemail messages for myself just so that I am prepared and I sound professional when I do leave a voicemail.
I love that advice. Nobody calls anybody anymore. Or write handwritten letters. I mean, I know I've written handwritten letters to executives, and that's led to long relationships with leaders of really cool companies. The voicemail is great as well. And don't be afraid to leverage your status as a student. I mean, everybody wants to help students. So if you call up an executive and you say, hey, Jane, my name is Garrett, and I'm a student at Indiana University, and I'm studying finance, and I highly admire your work. I hope to aspire to be doing the type of work that you're doing. One day, I was wondering if you'd be open to having a conversation with me so then you could share with me a little bit about what you do. If you did that, or for whatever degree path you're in, if you did that for 10 executives, I would imagine at least 3 of them will call you back and say, absolutely, yes, you let me know the time. Nobody gives me a call. Nobody leaves me a voicemail, especially students. They'll probably even say things like, shoot, I can't even get my kids to leave me a voicemail. Like, this is insane. But the point is that there's a lot of power in that. So I'd love to take a moment to ask the students in the audience right now, what is something that you would like to do to prepare for your next opportunity to get your foot in the door for a professional scenario or situation? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn, what are you going to do to prepare for your next potential opportunity to meet with another professional? So, Carrie, I'd love to ask, how does LinkedIn play a role in networking, getting your foot in the door? How can students best leverage LinkedIn to really put themselves in the best position to thrive and succeed?
One way is to subscribe, actually be a member on LinkedIn. I don't know the exact cost associated, but you can sign up as a premium user. I believe it's good for 3 months. You can definitely go visit their website and look at their subscriptions, but premium would give you several different in-mails is what LinkedIn calls them. And so you would have up to, maybe it's 20 per month of reach outs to folks on LinkedIn. Otherwise, I think you only get 1 per month. if you're not a member. So I highly recommend being a member on LinkedIn. There's also a button that you can, a radio dial where you can choose to be open to work. And the summary section of LinkedIn is so important, that you put there what it is that you're looking for and what it is that you have experience doing. And then there's titles that you can also choose for what specifically you're looking to do. And I think you can choose up to 5 different titles. But I think it's really important to have a strong summary of yourself and your experience level or your education. If you don't have experience, if you have completed internships, put that in there as well. And put the year and the company that you did the internship, and potentially a brief description of what that internship was. So I think those are some things that would help.
That's a really good point there. I think the summary section is so critical. I think that makes a ton of sense. I definitely think it's all about just describing yourself. I will say this. I don't, as students, you do not necessarily need the premium account on LinkedIn. Like, you can just go with the free version, and I think it can get you exactly what you need. And when it comes to messaging people, I mean, you can just send a just generic connection request and just say, hey, Jane Doe, John Doe, whatever, like, I'm a student studying XYZ. You get, I think, 140 or 200 characters or something like that. So that's enough to create a nice little concise message to convey who you are and what you're doing. And you don't actually need to have the premium version for that. But if you can get 3 months of premium, definitely take advantage of it. But the one thing that Carrie, I'd love to learn your thoughts on when it comes to LinkedIn. I don't know how much of a fan I am of the open to work banner. And the reason why I say that is because, at least in my observation, it kind of, I don't want to say reeks of desperation, but it definitely, like, the moment I see somebody trying to connect with me and they've got that banner, I'm immediately turned off, because I immediately think to myself, like, they're going to try to, like, ask me for something. It almost feels like I'm about to have a sales pitch of, like, why I should hire this person. And I think that perhaps it conditions me to be turned off by that person when I see the banner. But I think if they were to come without the banner, they, I'm much more likely to engage and interact and want to learn more. And maybe I'm totally off base here, but what are your thoughts on it?
I hear your bias towards that. I think times are different now with COVID. So because of the dynamics and the pandemic, that there are so many of us now that are looking for work. One of the biggest advantages of listing open to work is for recruiters and headhunters to find you. So imagine I do a search and I have 5,400 results of who I'm looking for. I use LinkedIn Recruiter, and it pulls all these numbers, but I'm able to whittle that down to 1,000 that are open to work, that are immediately available. Where do you think I'm going to go first? I'm going to look at those folks first over the other 3,300, So it's just one of those things where it's time efficiency, it's management, and I think times are a little bit different. I probably would have said 6 months ago not to put yourself open to work, because it could look like you're desperate. But my thoughts that I share with my close friends that are currently unemployed and looking is to put your end date on LinkedIn. If you were just laid off in November, put that, and you can even put in your description part of a reduction in force, part of a layoff. I mean, you can spell out what happened and why you are now unemployed. I think that's helpful too.
Oh, that's a great perspective. See, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about LinkedIn Recruiter and how that could be impactful. But yeah, I think from that perspective, it makes a ton of sense. You make yourself now more available to potential employers or recruiters interested in potentially hiring you, which I think there's definitely validity and interest there. So I think that there's two sides of the coin, and for you as a student, you just kind of got to weigh, like, what side of the coin are you most interested in? And I think, but I'm glad that we could both provide both sides of it, because now you've got an educational insight into both sides of the value of LinkedIn. And and whether or not to put the banner of open to work on there. So I'd love to ask students really quick, I guess, what can you start to do on LinkedIn to start getting yourself access and your foot in the door to other professionals? What is something you'd like to start implementing? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about that. So Carrie, I'd love to ask, because all these students have mentors, how can they best leverage their mentor to help them get their foot in the door for opportunities?
Again, it's being transparent, that B word, being vulnerable. We're not begging for an opportunity. We're simply asking and sharing information about ourselves, which, you know, obviously we're sharing our strengths and what we feel we have to offer, as well as asking for their the opportunity. You know, people genuinely want to help other people. It makes us feel good about ourselves. So I think when it comes to mentoring, I really love giving back. I'm very passionate about helping others. That's why I chose the profession of recruiting. But I feel like oftentimes we are a little afraid to ask. And it's always asking, who else do you know that might be in a position that could benefit from what I have to offer? I think that's important.
I love that. I think that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I think having a mentor and being willing to ask is so critical, because you never know what they're going to say. You have no idea who they may know or how they might be able or willing to help you. And so, yeah, if you don't ask, you're never going to know. I guess one thing I loved about your story, Carrie, was that you went from selling cosmetics to obviously selling IT software. And what I think is so interesting about that is, I think there's a lot of, back to that B word of vulnerability, I think there's a lot of students that might think to themselves, well, what if my career path changes? What if my interests change? Like, and I've got this mentor and I've already told them about this one path, but now after I've got more information, I realize I might want to go into a different path. Is that something to be ashamed of, or something to be vulnerable and just be open with?
I think it's something that we should embrace. I've had so many careers over my 25 years of working, and it's exciting. It's what makes us unique, and it's what makes others drawn to us. Our experiences do. And I think when we explore other opportunities and ask people, it helps connect the dots. It's what makes us who we are. And I think at the end of the day, mentors enjoy sharing success stories about others that they've helped along the way on their journey. And it also helps us sometimes too. We get back something as well, whether that be a memory of, gosh, when I graduated, what I was faced with then versus now. The times are different, and the opportunities are different for us today as they were back, you know, when I graduated too. But I think hopefully that answers, you know, provides some color around that.
Oh, it absolutely does. I think that makes a ton of sense. But it leads kind of on this line of, as a student, can we identify a professional mission for ourselves? Because maybe our career interests change, but the mission doesn't change at all. Maybe it stays the same. I know for me, my mission really is more my vision, is a world where the vast majority of people are excited to go to work. When they're there, their expectations meet reality. When they come home, they feel fulfilled. Everything I do, everything I've done really revolves around that. And as our company has pivoted and changed and iterated, we've stayed along that line of helping people just expectations meet reality when it comes to work, and just being fulfilled and happy about what they're doing. What are your thoughts on setting a vision or a mission for yourself that really you can hold true across any of your areas of interest within your career and work?
I think one, giving yourself grace that your mission may not be the ultimate mission. So while we think, okay, I graduated in marketing, I now know that I want to pursue a career in marketing, okay? There are probably 25 different jobs in marketing that you can pursue. I mean, from the customer side to demand generation to retention, there's so many different areas in marketing. So how do you know? How do you know which area you want to go into? I think it's important to find somebody that, and again, who do you know? keep asking folks, well, who do you know that's in the marketing field that is maybe at an executive level where they could share with me the different categories or areas of marketing. I have a really quick story to share if you have a minute of a placement that I made, a gentleman, and I helped his niece who was a recent marketing major. And she thought that she wanted to do marketing. Well, she ended up talking to her uncle and leveraging his relationships and learned more about marketing. And guess what? She decided that that is not the career journey that she wants to pursue now. That doesn't mean that it won't change. It very well could. But she's a recruiter today, and she was put in my path. I talked to her about the field. She was not at all interested to begin with because she had never spoken to anybody about recruiting. So she had misconceptions about what the field is, how could she leverage her background. Marketing is a little bit of sales. So there were some similarities in the fields that she wasn't aware of. But again, I think it's networking and asking people for information about what they do that will help you put together your mission. And it will probably be very different. It's very different for me when I first set my goals or my sights on my first career.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense. So I'd love to ask the students, and by the way, this can change, but what is your personal mission? At least at this given moment in time, post in the comment section. What is your personal mission that you think ideally might be able to hold true for you throughout your career? And if not, if it changes, that's okay. But put it out there into the ether. I want to know, what is your mission? What is the impact you want to make on the world with your work and your career? Post in the comment section. I would love to learn about it. Carrie, this has been an awesome workshop. I feel like the students have really enjoyed getting to know you, getting to know your story, just thinking about different ways of being persistent and getting their foot in the door. How can our students learn more about you? How can they connect with you? I know a lot of our students are big into LinkedIn. Can they connect with you there? How can our students connect with you and learn more about your work?
Absolutely. So for students that have graduated, I might have an internship program with one of my clients. So you can definitely reach out to me and learn more about that. I will ask for you to send me a resume. We can talk about how you can put together one that highlights your skills. But I can be reached at Carrie at top-notchrecruiting.com. Feel free to reach out there, or Carrie Russell on LinkedIn. There's several Carrie Russells, but just put in Top Notch Recruiting and I'll pop up that way. If you'll send me a request to join my network, absolutely, I'll accept that and we can connect. If you want to be intentional, send me a message and let me know exactly what it is that I might be able to help you with. And if you have any questions, feel free to post those there.
You're amazing, Carrie. Thank you so much for being here. Students, thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. See you, everybody.